A mailbox, plucked from its post in the middle of the night outside the police chief's home.
I never looked for special privileges.
A minor federal crime that may have unraveled the largest law enforcement scandal in state history.
It's criminal civil rights violations or obstruction of justice.
At the center, the power couple, Chief Louis Kealoha and wife Katherine, a high-ranking deputy prosecutor, accused of commanding specialized police units to enforce their personal agenda, and accused of sending the heavy hand of law enforcement raining down against those who challenge them and their lavish lifestyle.
These powerful defendants allegedly manipulated the justice system for their own purposes.
The force of the feds convinced some of them to cross the blue line and switch sides.
He's taken full responsibility for what he did.
Both sides now clearly defined and digging in as the mailbox trial is set to start. The simple crime, pitting law enforcement against law enforcement.
We pled not guilty because we're not guilty. We definitely look forward towards our day in court.
For the Kealohas, retired Major Gordon Shiraishi, Lieutenant Derek Hahn, and Officer Bobby Wynn, that day is here. It's been 6 years since the Kealohas reported their mailbox stolen. 5 since news stories first raised doubts about it. And 4 since the FBI got involved. There have been so many stories, new characters, and new accusations since. Fitting that the first trial for the Kealohas is the one that affected them the most. Their mailbox, their uncle accused of stealing it, their law enforcement friends investigating it. Tonight, we bring focus back to the case that started it all. The charges, witnesses, evidence, and potential defense in what is the most anticipated trial in decades. The roots of the mailbox case go back more than a decade. Those were the years prosecutors say Louis and Katherine Kealoha lived way beyond their means in a $2 million Kahala home, driving flashy cars and throwing lavish parties. In 2007, Katherine became trustee for both her uncle, Gerard Puana, and her grandmother, Florence Puana, then in her late 80s. That gave Katherine access to about $200,000. In March of 2013, the Puanas sued her, believing she'd stolen that money. Federal prosecutors say Katherine became desperate to destroy the Puanas' credibility before that civil case went to trial. 2 months later, on June 21, 2013, surveillance cameras captured the grainy, black and white images of a man stealing the Kealoha's mailbox. They identified the thief as Gerard Puana.
It was retribution to me for standing up to them. That's what it was all about.
Police officers in Chief Kealoha's select group, called the Criminal Intelligence Unit, or CIU, were sent to investigate. That included Major Gordon Shiraishi, in charge of CIU, Lieutenant Derek Hahn, also a business partner with Katherine in a solar company, Officer Bobby Wynn, who was related by marriage to Katherine and was also living in the Kealoha's pool house, Officer Danny Sellers, Katherine's ex-boyfriend, and Officer Niall Silva. And that's not all. Homicide detectives also investigated, and undercover officers were assigned to follow and arrest Puana. All this for a mailbox theft. Kealoha justified it to Hawaii News Now in 2014.
We've expended this kind of resources, for legislators, judges, prosecutors. We've done it in the past.
On December 4th, 2014, the first day of Puana's trial, Chief Kealoha, while on the stand, falsely told the jury that Puana had a burglary conviction, which wasn't true. That caused a mistrial.
I believe it's that he did it intentionally.
The defense team accused the chief of throwing the trial to avoid exposing evidence that would have cleared Puana of stealing the mailbox. That evidence was turned over to the FBI. On October 21, 2015, Hawaii News Now reports federal prosecutor Michael Wheat, a public corruption specialist out of the San Diego office, was assigned to the case and launched a grand jury.
It's a very courageous decision on his part.
On December 16, 2016, the first to fall. Officer Nao Silva, now retired, admitted he lied about the mailbox theft investigation, both on the stand and to the FBI. His plea deal requires that he testify against the others.
That guilty plea set off a chain reaction. 3 days later, December 19, 2016, would be Louis Kealoha's last day leading HPD. He put himself on leave after receiving a target letter from the Department of Justice and was forced to retire 2 weeks later.
As Chief of Police
of the City and County of Honolulu.
of the City and County of Honolulu.
Congratulations, Chief.
Thank you.
Kealoha's 7-year reign was controversial from the beginning.
If you don't like the scrutiny, if you don't like having to deal with crisis and things like that, then this isn't the job for you.
He was only a captain when he was dramatically elevated to chief in November of 2009. Still, he was seen as qualified with several college degrees, including a PhD.
Experienced, and of course his knowledge and his schooling, his background, his education spoke volumes of his qualities.
He had the support of Police Union President Tanari Ma'afala and Mayor Mufi Hanneman. After he took the top spot, Katherine threw him a lavish $26,000 induction party. Federal prosecutors say it was funded with stolen money. A Mercedes, Maserati, Elton John concert tickets, and Disneyland are among the list of luxuries the indictment described as the spoils of her scheme.
A husband and wife team so desperate to fund their lifestyle and maintain their self-professed status as Honolulu's power couple.
It's unclear how much Louis knew about their finances. He reportedly never even owned a checkbook, but he is charged with the same crimes and accused of using his power to cover up financial misdeeds. That includes using HPD resources.
At this point, I'd like to thank the Chief for his many years of service.
Louis' forced retirement in January of 2017 came with a questionable $250,000 payoff, a deal that is still highly criticized today.
Katherine Kealoha wasn't as high profile as her husband, but she did make a name for herself in legal circles. She was well respected until the family feud first reared itself in 2012.
The Constitution and laws of the United States of America. The Constitution and laws of the United States of America. The Constitution and laws of the state of Hawaii.
Katherine Kealoha's alleged role as the mastermind of conspiracies is in stark contrast to the image she built over years in public service. A spread in the Office of Hawaiian Affairs magazine portrayed the Native Hawaiian power couple as a dynamic duo at the top of their game. Katherine described herself as a country girl, humble, that she and Louis were rubber slipper people who had risen to high positions.
We all trusted her, especially Mom and I. We trusted her wholeheartedly.
Many people did. It wasn't until 2012 when another side seemed to emerge. The government says Katherine sent this scathing letter to her grandmother after Florence Puana asked for repayment of a $300,000 loan. Using a lot of capital letters, it promised retribution and said defectors will rue the day. Court battles followed.
Katherine Kealoha.
Kealoha ended her career as it started, at the city prosecutor's office. She resigned last year, 1 year after being indicted. In the OHA article, she described dream retirement as being back in the country with a front yard on the sand so she could get on her board and paddle off into the ocean. An ending far different from what federal prosecutors now have in mind.
Over the course of 5 days in October of 2017, the FBI staggered the arrest of the suspects, culminating with the Kealohas, who were the only ones allowed to do a planned surrender at their Kahala condo.
Blowing kisses, wearing lei, and waving. Louis and Katherine Kealoha exited the courthouse for the first time as defendants on October 19, 2017. It was almost celebratory, like newlyweds leaving a chapel.
Do you have any comments? No comments?
Co-defendants Bobby Wynn, Derek Hahn, Gordon Shiraishi, and Danny Sellers took the opposite approach, walking out using side doors or rushing past the media. The feds publicly addressed the investigation. At the base of the courthouse steps, Assistant U.S. Attorney Alana Robinson detailed a 20-count indictment full of disturbing allegations. On January 11th of this year, the final guilty plea in the case. This time, Officer Danny Sellers, who admits to a misdemeanor crime of distributing a police report to Katherine. He's the only one without a felony because he has provided key information into another Kealoha case and is expected to testify against the others in this upcoming trial. He's already been sentenced to a year probation.
The remaining defendants are standing their ground, putting their fate in the hands of a jury. They are charged as a group with conspiracy to defraud the United States, obstruction of an official proceeding, and lying to a federal officer.
Still ahead, the witness list. Almost 150 people are on it.
You're not going to see 150 witnesses, but a lot of them are there just in case we have to call them.
Who the jurors are expected to hear from and how they fit into the case. Also, coming up, what kind of car was the mailbox thief driving and who did it belong to? The conflicting reports and why a lie detector was used. That's all ahead on this Hawaii News Now special report.
The possibility of prison for the former police chief, a high-ranking deputy prosecutor, and hand-picked police officers makes this the most important public corruption trial in state history. And what exposed it all? The stolen mailbox. It would be comical if it wasn't so consequential.
The Kealohas had at least 6 cameras on the outside of their Kahala home, but only 2 had a view of the mailbox. In the overnight hours of June 21, 2013, the cameras record a white sedan approaching. It slows, but the angle makes it tough to read the license plate. It stops for a few seconds. A man wearing a hat and sunglasses gets out of the driver's seat, walks behind the car, looks at the mailbox, rocks the pedestal, and then easily lifts the top. He puts it under his arm like a loaf of bread, places it on the back seat, then casually walks back to the driver's side. It takes just about a minute, 60 seconds that would change so many lives. Gerard Puana was arrested 8 days later.
It was just devastating. Devastating.
Because it involved U.S. mail, the feds took over. Federal Public Defender Alexander Silvert was appointed to represent Puana and immediately saw holes in the case. First, the timeline. Officer Nal Silva reported he went to the Kealoha home just before 9 a.m. to collect the video and security system's hard drive. But the Kealohas hadn't even reported it stolen yet. Didn't call 911 until hours later at 1:30 in the afternoon. The second red flag, in their report, the Kealohas claimed the stolen box was a model that cost twice as much as the one that was actually taken. The higher value would have pushed the charge up from a misdemeanor to a felony if it stayed in state court. The third issue, HPD said the car in the video was this Acura, belonging to a neighbor of Gerard Puwana. The neighbor was forced to take a polygraph because HPD detectives insisted she loaned the car to Puwana for the mailbox theft. When she passed the lie detector test, the detectives decided Puwana had stolen it, even though it was clearly not the same car in the video. The neighbor's car had a spoiler in the back. The thief's car did not. The FBI sent the surveillance video to Quantico, Virginia to enhance it, and they now know the car wasn't even an Acura, but a Lexus. Silvert was prepared to unleash his evidence at Puwana's trial.
And that was going to be our Perry Mason moment. It was going to be our ha-ha, because there's nothing they could say about that.
Before he had a chance, Chief Kealoha caused the mistrial. Silvert believes that was intentional.
Silvert took all of his evidence to the FBI. Eventually, Gerard Puwana was reclassified from suspect to victim. Throughout 2016 and 2017, a parade of witnesses were summoned to testify before a federal grand jury. High-ranking police officers, prosecutors, doctors, a steady stream that apparently added more ammunition to the growing federal case. Some of those grand jury witnesses are now trial witnesses. More than 140 people could be called to the stand, both for and against the defendants. But one important name is absent from the list and will impact Mrs. Kealoha's defense.
The feds say Allison Lee Wong is an imaginary person, an alias Katherine Kealoha used in several frauds and forgeries. The name appears as the notary on trust documents that were apparently doctored. And Allison Lee Wong also authored a testimonial letter to lawmakers in support of Katherine's appointment to head the State Office of Environmental Quality Control. 2 executives of the National Notary Association are prepared to testify that a $20 notary stamp for Allison Lee Wong was ordered in 2008 and shipped to the Office of Environmental Quality Control. The recipient was a Katherine Kealoha. Katherine Kealoha was the director of the office at the time. Her own civil attorney tried to find the notary, but found out there was no registered notary in Hawaii by the name Allison Lee Wong. The government also says Facebook cookies prove that the account was accessed from computers owned by Katherine's family members. If Allison Lee Wong exists, she'd be a crucial defense witness.
That Allison Lee Wong does in fact exist, then they're put into a box where you better produce her.
But she is not on the list. More than 140 other people are, including Florence Puwana, who already testified. The 99-year-old had heart surgery, so a recorded deposition was done on April 29th. She endured grueling hours of questioning and cross-examination.
I do everything myself.
In 2017, she told Hawaii News Now that testifying is something she has been waiting and wanting to do for years, especially after Katherine's attempt to get her declared incompetent.
Incompetent? I am not.
Her recorded testimony will be played for the jury. Her son, Gerard Puwana, the alleged victim, will take the stand. He'll describe investments, trusts, and a reverse mortgage that Katherine handled. He'll also say he faced harsh retaliation after he confronted her about missing money, which included being tailed by HPD officers in subsidized, unmarked vehicles. Those plainclothes policemen, homicide detectives, and commanders will also testify. One of the first to take the stand will be HPD Deputy Chief John McCarthy. The government says Katherine repeatedly tried to get Puana convicted of crimes. McCarthy will tell the jury that she went to him to pursue elder abuse and fraud charges against Puana. But when McCarthy told her that would require her turning over bank records, she immediately withdrew the complaint. Altogether, about 40 current and former HPD officers are named. Former Officer Letha DeCaris was investigating the Kealohas for the City Ethics Commission before the FBI. She says she was on the verge of uncovering and revealing some of the same alleged schemes.
Hot on the trail of real misdeeds that were occurring at the direction and implementation of the Kealohas.
Legal experts wonder if any of the defendants will take the stand, especially Katherine Kealoha, who has won over juries in the past.
Certainly a good strategy for the defense to indicate, well, then not Mr. Puana, who did it then?
Coming up, circumstantial evidence. With no mailbox thief in custody, the difficulties for the government. And this trial is only the beginning. The other crimes the Kealohas are accused of, and why legal experts say those will be harder to fight in court.
While the government believes it can prove that Gerard Puana was not the mailbox thief, prosecutors will not be able to say who is. None of the witnesses will identify the person on the video. That's why legal experts describe the case as circumstantial. Of all the trials the Kealohas face, this could be their best chance at acquittal.
Unlimited reach, a team of attorneys and FBI agents, plus financial backing, make the feds a staggering force. Statistics show 90% of all federal criminal cases end with plea deals. Of the 10% that go to trial, only 1% ends with exoneration.
They have a lot of resources and they cherry pick their cases. So when they do go to court, they've got really a huge advantage over most of the defendants.
It's a daunting task to face the feds head on. But the burden is still on them to convince all 12 jurors that these high-ranking law enforcement officials committed the crimes they're accused of. Legal experts say the defense can try to cast reasonable doubt by insisting they believed Gerard Puana was the mailbox thief.
The defense has to be, I don't care what y'all say, I believed it was him.
And it appears the government won't offer an alternative.
Juries always want to know who did it. You know, it's a whodunit.
Without the answer, the government will have to connect the dots for jurors.
We don't have to know the name of the person. We just have to know who put him up to it.
In a stunning development, the Kealohas recently named a new possible suspect on their exhibit list. The Kealohas' own surveillance video shows a man walking by not long after the mailbox theft. You can see the empty post. The Kealohas say he's a Kahala businessman, but that man tells Hawaii News Now he is stunned to learn he was dragged into the case. He does not match the description of the man in this video. He says HPD never even contacted him. But Katherine did, showing up at his office to ask if he had seen anything suspicious on a neighborhood walk. She left her official business card as a supervising city prosecutor. The man thought it was odd that a deputy prosecutor was investigating a crime that involved her own property. He is not on the witness list, so it's not clear how the defense will use these images. Now Silva will discuss the alleged conspiracy that he says he once was a part of, but he admitted to lying on the stand in the first mailbox trial, and that could ruin his credibility this time.
A lot of it has to do with how firm he is in taking responsibility for his lies and whether any of the defense lawyers can shake him.
Danny Sellers will also testify for the prosecution, but he doesn't know who took the mailbox. It'll come down to jurors making their own conclusions after hearing both sides throw everything at them.
It's a knockdown, drag-out fight, and so that's what these next 3 or 4 weeks is going to be about.
The first trial will be historic, but the scandal's hardly over. The couple still face dozens of other federal charges, especially Katherine.
A year and 7 months ago, the Kealohas walked out of federal court into the arms of supporters, brimming with confidence after pleading not guilty. Subsequent courthouse exits were much more subdued, no lay, and only media waiting for them. The Kealohas still appear affectionate and united. Some believe it's all just a show.
Gotta hold hands. That's a solidarity. Gotta hold hands. It's part of the defense lawyer script. It's on page 1. Hold hands as you walk slowly together.
These matching aloha attire, the jurors may find look kind of stilted and manufactured.
Real or staged, the appearance will likely continue even after this trial.
Their activities go way beyond the mailbox.
A second trial moves away from public corruption and into financial fraud, some of the toughest to defend against.
There's usually a strong record of the financial documents.
The government accuses Katherine of raiding the inheritance of siblings. One of them, Ranson Taito, who says she told him to lie about the missing money.
They can trace checks from this trust account right into Kealoha's checking account.
Taito pleaded guilty and will testify against her, as will former firefighter Jesse Ebersol, who says Katherine also directed him to lie to the grand jury about their romantic relationship, an affair the government says was funded using stolen money. And after that trial, Katherine has a third trial. This time, her co-defendant is not her husband, but her brother, Dr. Rudy Puana. The two are accused of distributing drugs, allegedly trading and selling powerful prescriptions from Dr. Puana's pain management clinic. Cooperating witnesses have admitted playing roles in the suspected operation and getting paid for it. The gravity of all the accusations are heavy for a couple once sworn to serve and protect.
I have many things to be thankful for today.
A couple who dedicated their careers to putting people behind bars face the possibility of being there themselves.
The Kealohas have always maintained their innocence. 12 jurors will determine if the government has proven its case beyond a reasonable doubt after hearing the evidence. Whatever the verdict, those involved, the law enforcement community, and the people of Hawaii have already paid a hefty price. I'm Lynn Kawano, Hawaii News Now.